Western Digest magazines. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and I'm wearing my Gotham Pulp Collector's t-shirt to talk about digest magazines with Western themes. We're all aware of the digest magazines from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that are mystery and crime, and like Mike Shane and Trapped and Guilty and Manhunt and all of those. And also the ones in the science fiction genre, Analog and If and Orbit and all of those. But there were a whole lot of Western magazines in digest form, and some of them had some interesting surprises as authors in them. You had a lot of them had names of Western authors that I've never heard of and that probably nobody's heard of. Then again, you have a lot of authors who were mainstays of Western writing, some classic Western authors, some very good ones who wrote excellent stories. And then you have some surprises that creep in, authors from other genres where you would least expect them to be in these magazines. So we're going to take a look at them now. First we have a group. I'm going to go through these various magazines. This is all Western. And all Western, they have a back cover. There's a nice back cover art. You had a lot of Henry St. Clair Drago, William Lewis, other authors. And inside with a nice inside artwork. This is just, some of them have more artwork than others. Some of them have color artwork. Another all Western with stories by Ernest Haycox, James Hendricks, T.T. Flynn. And that's a really beat up copy. It's the back cover. Another all Western with Ernest Haycox, Eugene Cunningham. There's the artwork on the inside. And that artwork on the back cover, which is nice. It's probably a better cover than this one. Another all Western, Ernest Haycox, Frank Bonham, Bill Gulick, Eugene Cunningham. These are all like well-known Western authors, and they always were able to give you a good story. Road to Sandoval. And back cover. It's nice that they really had nice paintings on the back covers.
It's interesting that they didn't do a wraparound per se. They did a whole separate.
Yeah, I know. They should have. And these were Dell magazines. So now, these four have been Dell magazines. Now this is Famous Western, and this is from 1960. And this has Outlaw Vigilante by Harlan Clay, and I'm just wondering who that might be. It's probably a pseudonym. I don't think it's a pseudonym for Harlan Ellison. This is like one of the lower level rung magazines. Western magazines. These don't have anything on the back cover but an ad. The Famous Western. A lot of the names on these magazines, I don't recall any of them. So this one had stories. Yeah, it had stories by almost nobody I heard of as a Western writer, but it did have a story by a science fiction writer, and that's kind of odd. So this has a story, if I can find it. Sagebrush Song by Robert Silverberg, science fiction writer. He was probably one of his only Westerns, or he probably didn't write too many of them. I'd have to ask Bob about that. This is from 1958, January 58, Robert Silverberg story. Another famous Western, from October 57. Nice cover art. I don't know any of the authors in this issue. H.C. Early, never heard of him. I'm not up on all of the Western authors, but I'm up on a lot of them, especially the ones that wrote for the magazines. These were the lower level magazines. They didn't have too many illustrations in them, but they're nice. These were Double Action, published by Double Action, who also published Double Action pocket books, Double Action mystery magazines, science fiction magazines. So this was their Western. It's a little very delicate, these magazines. This had, does it have anybody in it? Noel Loomis. Basically, that's all. The other authors I had never heard of before. And this lead story is by Art Cleveland, who I'd never heard of before. Next is Blazing Guns, Western Story Magazine. And again, no author I ever heard of. That's the contents page. That's the first story.
Just show us the cover.
What?
You never showed us the cover.
Oh, there's the cover. Back cover has ads. Another Blazing Guns. These are nice. Anybody? Oh, okay. So this one has some interesting Blazing Guns cover.
Cylinder's cover.
Probably, yeah. That's the contents page, the first story. I haven't heard of any of the authors in this issue, except for one, who's a very popular, very collectible author. Not in the Western area, and not in the science fiction area like Silverberg, but in the crime area, Renegade by Gil Brewer. So there's a Gil Brewer Western story, which is kind of interesting, kind of cool. And that's in Blazing Guns. Another Blazing Guns. Nice cover. Never heard of any. Here's another author, who short story writer, who is known for writing millions, probably, of short stories. In Blazing Guns, nice cover art, kind of a good girl art cover. And there's the first story. And there's also a story by a guy called Edward D. Hoke, 127, who wrote a lot of mystery and crime stories. Every issue of Elliot Queen has an Ed Hoke story in it. And he was a guest at my show for many years, and really great guy. And here's The Graveyard on the Hill by Ed Hoke. A Western story by this mystery crime writer. And I published a book of his Sherlock Holmes stories, but he's best known for writing many crime stories over the course of decades. And this is a Western story of his. Now this is this is earlier, so these magazines are from the 50s and maybe early, like 1960, 61. All of these that I'm going to show you, but there's somewhat that's a lot earlier. This is a Western, Street and Smith Western magazine from July 1947, and it's got a Walt Coburn story in it. So this was probably a pulp at one time, Western Story magazine, and then it changed, went to paper, digest size, and it has an ad for the Shadow in it, and the Coast Guard, and has stories by Walt Coburn, L.P. Holmes, and nobody else that I know of. Covers by H.W. Scott. And there's one more, Street and Smith. Also has a Walt Coburn story. This is from June 1946. It's a little beat up. Has stories by Norman A. Fox, and another H.W. Scott cover. These are slightly bigger than digest size. Then there's Best Western. I only have one of these. It's got a Steve Fray's story, and it has a story by Day Keane, so famous crime writer. So here's a story, Best Western. And that's from June. Doesn't say. Kind of looks like a pulp. Really cool. This is a cool little digest. It's got a story by Steve Fray's, Wayne D. Overholzer, H.A. DeRosso, and Day Keane on 111. So here's the Overholzer story. The cover spread, opening spread for his story, and the Day Keane story is on 111. The Long Rope by mystery and crime noir author Day Keane, a Western story by Day Keane. It's kind of so interesting that there's a lot of authors in these that you wouldn't expect to see in writing Western stories. Zane Grey's Western magazine. This is Adele magazine. It has Owen Wister, Eugene Cunningham, Harry Sinclair Drago, and then some other authors that I don't know. I don't recognize the names. Here's the cover. And the inside, it had a cover, inside cover, and back cover. Very nice. This was a nice magazine. Can't find any of the stories though. There's a story, Desert Zane Grey story. Now we have Real Western Stories. The Real Bat Masterson. This is April 1959. There's absolutely no name that I recognize in this issue. Here's the cover. Nice cover. Cool little digest. Nice. These kind of offbeat Western magazines are more scarce. They were put out by the same companies that put out the Crime Digest magazines. They're all kind of scarce, especially in nice condition. Here's the contents. There's not a name that I recognize. but they could be all under pseudonym. It could all be written by the same author, maybe. There's the first story. And they just have titles and authors, no illustration. Next one is Luke Short's Western magazine. It's a Dell magazine from October, December 1954. This is number 2. So this one you have a Luke Short story, L.L. Foreman, George C. Appel, Will C. Brown, and then there's a surprise also here. Here's the cover. Surprise science fiction author. Here's the contents page. The first story by Luke Short. Really nice illustration. I like the interior illustrations. I think they're really cool, how they did the stories. L.L. Foreman. And there's one of note on page 100. Which is important. Cactus Dance by science fiction author Theodore Sturgeon. Theodore Sturgeon wrote a Western. Now he did write a Western paperback for Dell. I think it's The King and Four Queens. A Western is a movie tie-in, I think. But this is a one-shot Western story by famous science fiction author in a Western magazine. I think that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool find. The next one is All True Stories, Western Digest. This is a Carlton publication from March '69. So this is a decade basically later than these. And Carlton published this. Remember this ad with the ad was in comic books and every digest magazine. And here's the contents. Let me see who's in here. I'm looking through the names, and there's not one name that I recognize. There's a little article on introducing our writers. Harry Reisenberg. I don't know who he is. So this is 1969. And this is a factual Western, not so much fiction, but fact. The real West. Some interesting things in this. It's pretty cool. I don't know how many of these were published. So that's Western Digest, All True Stories. I'm going to move those out of the way, and we're going to take a look at a whole run of a really interesting, really cool series. Western Magazine. This is, I think it was an Atlas publication. It's first story. This is from December 1955, and the lead story is Son of a Gun by a guy called Richard Matheson. This is a Richard Matheson Western story in here, along with other authors. And here's the contents page, and here's the story by Matheson with color. Some of these issues use color on the stories or in the inside. They use like a two-tone process. Not every story, but they did on quite a few. I think that's a really nice effect. Yellow. So just to show you some of these are really cool. That's probably it. So that's Western Magazine with a, excuse me, with a Richard Matheson Western story. Next one is two of these. Deadline in Barrio by L. Foreman, Gardner Fox. So Gardner Fox wrote a bunch of Western stories. He wrote comic books, he wrote Superman, he wrote all kinds of Kothar, sword and sorcery books, everything basically. And he wrote Western stories. And he wrote The Fight at Lost Horse Springs in Western Magazine, September 1955. So here we have Killer Posse, and at 105 is Gardner Fox story, The Fight at Lost Horse Springs. This is a nice magazine. And there's another one. I'm not going to go through each one, but you can see they had, this is another issue. These are from the 50s. Philip Ketchum and Joseph Chadwick were well-known, Western writers. They wrote for Gold Medal. They wrote for many other paperback companies and hardcover editions. And then another Gardner Fox story. Western Magazine from March 56. You have L. Foreman and another Gardner Fox story. I have two of these. There's L. Foreman and Gardner Fox. These are 104. There's another one. 104. Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? There you go. The Killer and Johnny Kid by Gardner F. Fox. You never know what you're going to find in some of these Western magazines. This is number October 1956. I have two of these. Todd Hunter Ballard, who was Joseph Chadwick. These were published by Martin Goodman, who published Lion Books, and eventually became also published what would become Marvel Comics. This is he's got Joseph Chadwick, Todd Hunter Ballard. So this 112, Todd Hunter Ballard. Todd Hunter Ballard was T.W. Ballard, the crime writer, but he wrote it as Todd Hunter Ballard for his Westerns. Next one is from 1957, July, and it's again Joseph Chadwick, Philip Ketchum are the mainstays, and Gardner Fox. And most of these have three, on the contents page, three stories, and then and some of them have backup stories, but most of them just have three. And here's one from February 58. Again, Gardner Fox, L.L. Foreman, and Joseph Chadwick. I'm just looking that up. Let's see. Hell is Full of Heroes by Philip Ketchum. L.L. Foreman. Another issue. From January 57, Western Magazine, 3 big novels complete in this issue. 35 cents. Those are the days. These The Condemned by Joseph Chadwick. Exile of the Valiant, L.L. Foreman, and The Kid's Big Kill by Gardner Fox. Really nice artwork on these, on the covers. And this is the Joseph Chadwick story. Back covers all have information about the stories. Very nice done. Number July 56, Land of Violence. The Gun, Who Wore the Gun brand. And the last one is Philip Ketchum is the basically the top guy on this in this issue. Dean Smith. And there's nobody, no other. Deb Smith is Firebrand. I don't never heard of. So some of these authors I never heard of. They may be big in Western, but I know most of the big Western authors, the well-known ones. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Western Digest magazines. Some, I think they're pretty cool. They're pretty scarce, and they have a few surprises in stories by Richard Matheson, Gil Brewer, Ed Hoke, and others, Theodore Sturgeon, that have stories kind of hiding in these pages.
Robert Silverberg.
Robert Silverberg, yes. So hope you enjoyed this look at Western Digest magazines, vintage Western Digest magazines from the 50s. And thanks for looking, and see you next time.